Hey y'all, welcome back to TJ's Modeling Bench. It is a What Did You Buy Wednesday with a few community questions recently that I want to answer. But first, let's start with the What Did You Buy Wednesday. I've just got a few things. About a year ago, I was reorganizing my workspace a little bit and I needed like storage, but accessible storage, like for my tools and things that I use on a regular basis, so that my desktop wouldn't be so cluttered. And I tried to use some office desk organizers, the wire mesh stuff, similar to this square basket came out of one of them, so I still have this on the within reach at least. And I've had, I don't know what just fell. And I've had this piece now for a couple of weeks actually. But, typists, they put their copy there or whatever they're needing to read or whatever, and it holds it. You've got these two little magnets, but this is perfect for your instruction sheet. It's not laying all over your bench. You can put it up here and glance at it when you need to out of your way. And then to replace some of those desktop organizers, I got this one off of Amazon. I think this was during their Amazon Days sale a few weeks back. And to be honest, I don't remember the maker's name on this, but it kind of slots together, and then it's got these screws that they don't actually screw into anything. Like they fill a void that's there, so it kind of locks it together. It's fairly sturdy though, but I'm using it for sanding sticks. This is an old charger cord for one of my old phones that I just snipped off so I can get to the wires inside if I want to use those. A pair of pliers, more sanding sticks and sponges. Scissors, these little Fiskars scissors, really sharp, perfect for cutting decals, any little thing that you need to cut. These work really good, so I recommend those, the little ones. I have a larger pair too, but these get more use. My rotary tool on the top, my the Bondic, and then more sanding pads, sponges. So that one sits over here a little bit further out of the way, but still within easy access. And then this one here behind me, you can see the manufacturer or producer of this one is Bucasso, Bucasso, and this was purchased on Amazon as well. And I like it. It's sturdy, and it really just kind of press fits together. Everything's kind of just a press fit. I haven't put any glue to it. There's no screws in it. I mean, it'll move a little if you force it, but it's pretty solid. And my bench top from front to back is about 2.5 feet deep. This was originally, I built it for building RC airplanes, so I would stand up more and have to reach over big fuselages of things. So when I got out of doing that and started doing the plastic models, it's a lot deeper than I really need. And that was part of the problem with the desktop organizers I was using, is that they laid flat, and some of the stuff in the very back, it was not hard to reach, but it wasn't as easy to get to as I would have liked. If you got a project here, you're reaching over it, and I may have to stand up and reach over things to get to the back. So I like this idea better of going vertical, and I can have it closer without losing a lot of my workspace. So, and then it would be to my right when I'm sitting at the bench, but over here to the left is my laptop, and I have it on a little stand, and then I have a smaller green cutting mat right here, so I got both spaces I can work on, but the majority of my work is done here underneath the bright white light. Actually, I have bright white light in the whole shop, but this one focuses it more over this bench top. So those are the items that I've added to my workspace recently. And then a couple community questions. Paul over at Left Coast Model Builds, Left Coast Model Car Builds, I think is his full channel name. Anyway, Paul asked a question, and it's been a couple of weeks now. What influences your builds or your styles or what you build? And for me, I'm influenced by what I see every day, I guess. I didn't really grow up being a car guy necessarily, but I saw a lot of cars that were cool. I was in high school in the mid to late 80s, so I saw some pretty cool stuff, some Firebirds and Trans Ams and Camaros and a couple of older Mustangs. In fact, one upperclassman had a 64 and a half, and then his senior year he wrecked it. Oh, that was sad. And a classmate of mine, I think she might have had a 65, and that was a nice car too. But rather than like show finish vehicles or dealership showroom finishes, I like more of a everyday driver kind of look. When I did the D50 pickup truck last year, that was inspired by memories of seeing trucks like that all over the road, a little beat up and worse for wear, not shiny anymore, some rust. That's what I see every day. And things like that inspire me. So like Mustangs, newer, let's say in the last 30 years, I'm not a huge fan of them. And I'll tell you why. I've got no bias toward any of the manufacturers, Ford, Chevy, Dodge. Doesn't matter to me. I've owned everything. But the Mustang in particular, and maybe it's just me, but it feels like the majority of the ones I see on the road are just crap. They're dented and scratched, and part of the fascia's hanging off, and they've tinted the windows and it's peeling up, and they just look horrible. And I don't know if people just don't really take care of their cars, or if the Mustangs themselves just don't hold up over time. So I like the older ones, the 71 that I built not too long ago, and of course the 60 mid to late 60s era Mustangs. I like those. So yeah, my build style is influenced largely by what I see. And then every now and then, there's just something I think is really cool, or I've wanted one and I'll never own the one-to-one, so I build something that, satisfies that hunger just a little bit. Yeah, so, and then airplanes. So I'm getting ready to work on an airplane. I'm actually working on it. Aviation. I grew up as an aviation nut. I'm an Air Force veteran. I was a B-52 and B-2 mechanic when I was in the service. I did a little bit of time as a helicopter flight engineer. So as far as the aircraft, and then I also worked civilian aviation for several years after the service. But especially the military aircraft, I had a desire to build one of every aircraft that A, I worked on, or B, had some special significance to me. Like 4 or 5 years ago, I built an F-106 Delta Dart, and that one has a history to me in the fact that my first duty assignment was Minot, North Dakota, and at one time, the 5th Fighter Interceptor Squadron at Minot flew the F-106s, and they had a display bird up there on the pole, and it had these markings, and I was able to find the exact 5th Fighter Interceptor Squadron markings, and so I built that model of that one-to-one aircraft from Minot. I had a B-2 kit years ago that Testers had produced, and it came out not long after the B-2 was actually introduced to the public. So it was accurate, but it wasn't, there were things that just weren't quite right about it. And I started to build it, and I just kind of pushed it to the side because it wasn't it just wasn't right, and I couldn't get over it. So, and then the flying wings, I started those. Unfortunately, those old monogram, I think they're monogram. No, I'm sorry, they're AMT kits. They're so bad. The molds are horrible. Things are warped. There's huge steps between pieces, like the leading edges and the rest of the wing. I tried to fill and putty and plaster and paint, and not good at all. So those are on the shelf of doom. I still have a B-52. I have the B-52B model, which, if you're familiar, is the one that dropped like the X-15 and all the lifting bodies that NASA was testing, back in the 60s, early 70s maybe. And I actually got to crawl around on that B-52. It was out at Edwards before they retired it. It's been retired now probably 10 years or more now. But this was in the early 90s when I was on the B-2, and we were able to get a little behind-the-scenes tour at the NASA Dryden Research Center out there at Edwards Air Force Base. So that one has a special meaning to me, and I've got it under the bench, and it will get built at some time, but not right now. So right now I'm working on the A7. That one I just think is a cool jet. I've always kind of liked it. The Navy had it originally, and then the Air Force had a version of it made, so I'm building the Air Force version of it. It was long since retired before I joined the service, but I always thought it was a cool jet, as well as like the F-100, the 101, the 105. I'm an airplane guy by heart, really. But I also have, and I'm going to start this one probably this winter, but I have the International TranStar cab over, the 4070A. My dad actually worked for International Harvester in Fort Wayne, Indiana. New Haven was where I grew up, which is like right next to Fort Wayne. But then he got laid off around 79 or 80. But that memory of International Harvester being there and seeing all the trucks, that I just, I got to build that. That satisfies that memory, that, reminiscence. So that kind of answers that. The other question comes from Jason over at Blue Ox Model Shop, and he just asked this one a few days ago, and I'm just now getting around to being able to answer it. But his question was, when you're at your bench, you're in your room, and you're building a model, working on something, do you have music in the background? Do you have the TV on? Are you watching YouTube videos or listening to a podcast? Or are you one of those people that just likes it dead silent? Generally, I have music playing in the background, and my musical taste is primarily rock, but I really like the oldies, Buddy Holly, Little Richard, Elvis Presley, going way back, the old stuff. And there's a channel in Gulfport, Mississippi, which I can pick up through the internet, 100.9 WGCM, Gulf Coast Music. It's hosted by the Mississippi Gulf Coast Car Club, I think, that sponsors the Cruising the Coast every fall down here. So you get all these classic old cars down here for a week. But they play all that great old music. And there's commercials, but they don't tell you who the artists are because there is no DJ. It's like on a loop playing thing. The only drawback I have to that is that during baseball season, they cover the Biloxi Shuckers, which is a AAA league. And I'm not a huge baseball fan. I mean, I like baseball, but I really don't want to listen to it on the radio. That just, ugh. So in that case, recently I have had some YouTube videos because I haven't had a lot of time to watch everybody's stuff. I mean, there's a lot of us out there, you know that? There's a lot of videos to watch. You could take a week off and probably not see everybody's posts from the week prior. So the problem I have with that, though, is if I'm concentrating, I'm not really hearing it. It's just noise in the background. But I prefer that over a dead silence. So when I'm recording, I usually have to mute whatever's playing and make my recording so I don't get dinged by YouTube for copyright. But yeah, so I'm going to leave you guys with a question. And this one, I have a specific answer, but I'd like to hear what y'all think. My question is this: what is the one thing that either plastic kit manufacturers or the 3D producers are not providing that you would like to see? What is that one thing that everybody seems to overlook, but we kind of all wish we had it? And for me, I wish there were more figures in 1/24th and 1/25th scale. Whether it just be bystander figures, drivers. Now, I do have, hold on a second. So, Fujimi does produce stuff like this. This is 1/24th scale, and if memory serves, I did open this up a while back. There are 3, maybe 4 figures in here. So it fills a niche a little bit, but they're obviously of an Asian descent. You could probably paint it, and these guys would look Caucasian. She is Caucasian. Well, I don't know. Maybe those guys are, but some of this is for older cars, older eras. So it would be nice to have something a little more modern in a few cases, like the Camaro I just built, something, if I could have somebody that represents the 80s, maybe a high school senior from the 80s, something like that. But I would like to see more of this. And to my knowledge, Fujimi is really the only one that creates a kit like this. And it's 1/24th scale, which is okay, but it's not really going to work with all the 1/25th scale stuff. So that's my question to you guys. What is that one thing that's not being produced that you really was being produced, or more of them were being made? So anyway, till the next time, guys, peace and love.